Hi all and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about Winona Ryder, the incredibly beautiful and talented American actress who has been in the entertainment industry for over 3 decades. She was born she was born in Winona, Minnesota in 1971 to a writer and a publisher. Ryder's parents moved the family to Petaluma, California when she was just 10 years old. Ryder began her acting career in the late 80s, appearing in a number of films such as Lucas in 1986, Square Dance in 1987, and Beetlejuice in 1988. She gained widespread recognition for her portrayal of Veronica Sawyer in the cult classic Heathers in 1988, and her performance earned her critical acclaim. In the early 1990s, Ryder continued to establish herself as a talented actress, starring in films such as Edward Scissorhands in 1990 and Night on Earth in 1991. She also appeared in the box office hit Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992, which was directed by Francis Ford Coppola and also starred Gary Oldman. In 1994, Ryder received her first Academy Award nomination for her role as Joan March in Little Women in '94. Her performance was highly praised and she was considered a front-runner for the award. She also received Golden Globe nominations in 1996 for her roles in Little Women and How to Make an American Quilt in '95. Throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, Ryder continued to act in a variety of films, including Celebrity in '98, Girl Interrupted in '99, and Autumn in New York in the 2000s. In 2001, she took a short break from acting but returned to the screen in 2006 with a role in A Scanner Darkly 2006. In recent years, Ryder has made guest appearances on television shows such as Stranger Things 2016 to 2021 as Joyce Byers and The Plot Against America in 2020 as Evelyn Finkel. She also appeared in the film Destination Wedding in 2018 and the revival of The Iceman Comet on Broadway. Throughout her career, Ryder has been recognized for her contributions to the entertainment industry, receiving numerous award nominations and accolades. She is considered one of the most talented and respected actresses of her generation. And as the twice Oscar-nominated screen legend turns 51, revisit her British Vogue cover interview from February 1994, released in honor of her dazzling new role in Martin Scorsese's The Age of Innocence. More than just a century separates Mae Welland, the exquisite turn of the century miniature played by Winona Ryder in The Age of Innocence, and the pale, tiny waif standing in a Soho Street corner with her boyfriend, David Pirner, lead singer for the grunge band Soul Asylum. Ryder, wearing an old plaid lumber jacket, jeans and black high-top sneakers, leans across Pirner's guitar case to kiss the scraggly-haired musician goodbye. One wonders what the novelist Edith Wharton, with her keen eye for society's sense and sensibility, would have thought. And yet in late 20th century New York City, these two young stars inhabit a purely American kind of high society, the pop culture elite. Just the week before, Pirner and Ryder had met the Clintons when Soul Asylum were invited to perform at the White House. As Ryder leans across the table in a downtown restaurant, earnestly engaged in conversation, her face bears little resemblance to that of the wide-eyed, porcelain-skinned Mae. With her tomboy clothes and cropped hair, she seems more like a little kid than one of the most successful actresses of her generation. She looks tired and androgynous, perfect for a Calvin Klein ad. But after a few minutes, her contemporary garb fades, and it's easy to picture her permanently arrayed in period clothes. Ryder is pure retro, a thoughtful, literate, old-fashioned young woman who has miraculously survived success in Hollywood with her own innocence intact. Maybe it's all the J.D. Salinger she reads as ritually as any Bible. How many actresses would write a satire called In Search of Ian Hamilton and send it to Salinger's unauthorized would-be biographer? I wrote the meanest things I could come up with so he could see what that invasion of privacy would feel like, she says with a mischievous glint. The room darkens as a thunderstorm rages outside. I love the rain. It reminds me of home so much, she says in her soft, girlish voice. It makes me so happy because I just remember like being little and it would put me to sleep. She trails off dreamily. Her eyes are enormous in her small face, and despite her current Cub Scout aesthetic, she looks like a little magic girl or the illustrated poster for Les Miserables. She is like one of Salinger's characters come to life, a preternaturally wise child. Winona is sort of like from her own planet, says producer Dennis Dinovi, who's known her since she was 16. She's not totally of this world or of this time, but she radiates intelligence, and her instincts about people and situations are incredible. I love Winona's spirit and childlike quality, adds director Jim Jarmusch. I remember when we were making Night on Earth, I encouraged all actors to take me aside if they had anything they wanted to discuss. At one point we were having a real technical problem and I was getting pretty frustrated. And Winona came over with a real serious face and said, "Jim, I need to talk to you alone." So I said, "Winona, the acting is going great. What is it?" And she said, "I need a chocolate donut and a glass of milk." She's an interesting combination. She's very well read and knows a lot about books and music, but she also finds totally goofy things equally amusing. I first met Ryder 4 years ago on the set of Great Balls of Fire, starring Dennis Quaid as Jerry Lee Lewis and Ryder as his child bride. At the time she was just 17, young enough to require a professional chaperone on the set. There was a poignancy about her candor and lack of self-consciousness then. Now at 22, Ryder seems only slightly more worldly. Surprisingly, her openness has not been replaced by cynicism. Somehow, she has managed to escape the Hollywood time machine that chews up young artists and spits out jaded pros. Winona Ryder was named after the town where she was born in Minnesota. The family later moved to California. Like several other actors of her generation, Uma Thurman, Robert Downey Jr., and the late River Phoenix, Ryder had a decidedly unconventional upbringing as the child of hippie intellectuals. Her godfather is Timothy Leary, for whom her father worked as an archivist in the 60s. She has an older sister, Sunyata, an older brother, Jubal, and a younger brother, Uri, to whom she is particularly close. Her parents have the best marriage I have ever seen, says Genovi. And they give their kids unconditional love. In some ways, it's a closer, more traditional family than, say, Dan Quayle's idea of a nuclear family. When she was 10, her parents moved to a 300-acre commune along with 7 other families. By the time they moved back to Petaluma, Winona was marked a misfit. Her unimitable fashion sense didn't help. She liked to dress gamma style in thrift shop clothes with her hair cropped short like a boy. On her 3rd day at the new junior high school, she was called names and beaten up. "We were poor," she says now. "My brothers and sisters and I were teased because we didn't have money. We never had any lunch. Our parents were hippies and writers, and we drove these cars that, had moss growing on the ceiling." At 11, Ryder went through a punk phase, at one point even jumping on the stage at the Pretenders concert, and charming Chrissy Hindi, who serenades her with 2,000 miles. At 13, she started studying acting at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. She did a monologue that she developed from Salinger's Franny and Zoe and got an audition for the film Desert Bloom. Although she didn't get the part, she did get signed by an agent. Soon afterwards, she won her first role in Lucas. She made the movie during her summer vacation. Ryder proceeded to make a series of risky choices, most of which paid off. She became the princess of dark fairy tales, a baby Morticia in Tim Burton's wacky Beetlejuice, the queen of high school in the cynical teen movie Heathers, the cheerleader girlfriend of the tragic teen man Edward Scissorhands, played by her then boyfriend Johnny Depp, a fanatically religious schoolgirl who finally learns the facts of life in Mermaids, a spunky cab driver in Jim Jarmusch's Night on Earth, and the ultimate gothic bride in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, a script she herself brought to the director's attention. A critic's darling from the age of 13, Ryder has nevertheless paid a price for her success, physically as well as psychologically. She is haunted by the peers she never meets, having all but completely missed out on the later stages of childhood. And just 2 years ago, her own agent told her she would never work again. Ryder still gets upset when she talks about what happened when she flew to Rome for what was then the most important opportunity in her career, the role of Mary Corleone in Coppola's long-awaited The Godfather Part 3. Exhausted by a grueling year of nearly non-stop work and having arrived straight from the set of Mermaids with an upper respiratory infection and a temperature of 104, Ryder abandoned the film amid a flurry of tabloid headlines. It was so late in the game that the director replaced her with his own daughter Sophia, who happened to be on the set. The press speculated that Ryder had succumbed to drugs or maybe even had a full-scale nervous breakdown. Coming on the heels of the endless gossip about her on-again, off-again relationship with Johnny Depp, the Godfather debacle made it seem for the first time that Ryder was just another Hollywood starlet, a member of the live fast, burnout young brat pack. But her breakdown and subsequent recovery are an indication of just how far from the madding crowd the young actress really is. Other actors go into rehab, Ryder went home. Back with her family in Petaluma, she finally had a chance to act like exactly what she was, a dangerously worn-out young girl. I remember the only thing that got me through the flight from Rome to San Francisco was thinking of my mom's soup and that when I got off the plane, I'm going to get to be in my own bed. Like the shell-shocked Surgeon X who barely manages to survive the war with his faculties intact in Salinger's famous short story For Esme with Love and Squalor, Ryder's equilibrium was badly shattered and she needed several months to recover. She had felt pressurized into taking the role in Coppola's film by her agent, and her parents were warned that her career would be over if she didn't return to Rome and complete the film. Not only did Ryder not make the movie, she later called Coppola up and complained about remarks he had made to the press about the unreliability of certain young actors. The rumors of Ryder's professional demise were premature. By 1992, she was bankable enough to survive another difficult encounter with Coppola, this time on the movie Dracula. As Gary Oldman's fragile love interest, she was the victim not only of a lascivious vampire, but of the nasty rumors swirling around the set. Tales of the lack of chemistry between her and Oldman, an affair she was supposedly having with another actor, and Coppola's sometimes cruel methods for goading Ryder into the performance he wanted. At the time I thought, oh, I'm a real actress, but in retrospect I probably wouldn't take that again unless it was a director that I knew really well and that I really trusted, says Ryder firmly. I learned a lot on that set about what I'm not capable of tolerating. Suddenly Ryder segues into something completely different. It's really weird for me to talk about this stuff now because I went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington last week. It had this deep effect on me and it made me think of all the hard times I've been through and all the times I was thought I wasn't going to make it and been really dramatic, and it put everything into perspective. So when I talk about these things, I keep flashing on that. Although I never knew them, I lost over 100 relatives in the camps. You look at those faces and you wonder. Recently, Ryder's been on a kind of children's crusade. I have felt a strong connection with children this past year, she says. The other day I saw this movie, The Good Son, and it suddenly hit me. Children shouldn't be reviewed by critics. That was the whole problem when I started. I was being reviewed, but the great thing about children is that you can't really judge them because they're still in the process of becoming. So now I get really angry when I hear people making fun of those young actors who turn to drugs or crime. I don't think it's a joke. I think that sometimes the industry can be a form of child abuse. Last month, when a young girl was abducted in her hometown in Petaluma, she offered a 200,000 reward. She's been actively involved in trying to help locate lost children ever since David Pirner did an MTV video that flashes a series of photographs of missing teenagers. Off-screen Ryder may still be engaged in the process of becoming, but on screen she is the consummate professional. Even when she is playing a virtual cartoon character as in the Edward Scissorhands, she still exudes a kind of old-fashioned star quality, like a young Natalie Wood or Elizabeth Taylor. And she is a no pushover. She fights her own battles and other people's as well, intervening if she sees someone with less power in a production getting rough treatment. Winona's very hip about the movie business. It would be hard to run a movie past her. She pulls people up on stuff, says Jay Cox, who co-wrote and produced The Age of Innocence. She's sort of like a more benign version of the kid she played in Beetlejuice. She's got an unorthodox kind of beauty, talent and intelligence, and she's got a very fine-tuned phoniness detector. I took her to the New York Film Festival, and as each famous person came down to aisle, Winona just did a perfect little verbal cameo, like she was drawing a caricature with words instead of ink. As May Wayland in The Age of Innocence, Ryder spins a delicate web as a straight-laced society girl who appears to be a total innocent, but is perhaps the most manipulative character in Wharton's finely wrought tragedy of manners. Her fiancé, Newland Archer, assumes she is a doe-like dolt, but May manages to checkmate both Archer and the woman for whom he develops a clandestine and unconsummated passion. Countess Olenska, Michelle Pfeiffer, in this tournament of social chess. Ryder is so enamored of the film that she acquired some of the props, reproductions of famous paintings, and is having them framed for her apartment in Lower Manhattan. With the movie release, Ryder had what seemed to be a characteristic reaction to success. She reverted to childhood. The night before the premiere, I had done 3 days of press, and my whole family was here in New York, my grandma and everything. Ryder's 92-year-old grandmother was her date for the gala event. It was like 2 in the morning and I couldn't sleep, and all of a sudden I got this real panic feeling because everything was happening so fast, and I had been waiting for this movie to come out for so long, and I was so proud of it, and it was finally coming out, and I was nervous, and I called my mom and she came over and she slept with me in my bed, and I was kind of crying. It wasn't really a bad thing. It was just like wow, you know? And I really felt like her child. My father and I have always had a very intellectual relationship, and my mom treats me like her baby. Ryder has just finished two films, Reality Bites by 23-year-old first-time screenwriter Helen Childress, and The House of the Spirits based on Isabel Allen's novel with Meryl Streep and Glenn Close. Vincent Gallo, who is also in The House of the Spirits, describes visiting Winona every morning being made up in her trailer. She would just sing an entire musical from the 50s or do a genius imitation of Juliette Lewis. She's completely full of life. Reality Bites was my attempt at lightening up and doing a movie about people my age. If it's not good, it's going to affect me much more than if one of these other movies wasn't good, because I feel like I'm going to be watched by kids my age, and that's very important to me. I really want their respect, and I don't know if I have it. I was in Venice for the film festival with every brilliant director and actor and people I should be so intimate by, and I was fine. But when I get around people my own age, I'm a wreck. What they think of me is so much more important than what people in the industry think of me. I think it's just facing my own insecurity. I was not accepted in high school, not in junior high school, not in elementary school. I was always picked on. I never had friends except for one, Heather. This is going to sound weird, but even after I got famous, kids weren't nicer to me. I mean, I stayed in high school until I was a sophomore. I've done four movies. I've done Beetlejuice. It was a huge movie, but kids still threw food at me. Recently, says Ryder, she has had a kind of epiphany. I had been feeling a loss of self. Everything that I knew as a child was gone. Friends had died, people had disappeared, nobody in my family lived together anymore. My brothers and sisters had grown up and moved away. I felt like I was missing something, and I just wanted to go back and have things be the way they were. It didn't help that she was making a movie in which she was playing the ultimate victim. In the House of Spirits, Ryder is imprisoned and tortured, but in the end, the experience proved strangely cathartic. Typically, she finds a literary analogy. In Rilke's letters to a young poet, he says, "Ask yourself if you must write, and if the answer is yes, I must, then you are a real writer. And if the answer is, well, I guess not, then you're not. Must I act? Well, there are some days when it's like, yes, I must, but I just know that I can be a real artist without being in pain. You always hear that the great artists were the tortured ones, and it's just boring to me now. People used to say, oh, you're going through a hard time, use it. I don't buy into that at all. Ryder's next project is Little Women, in which she will play Jo. I never knew it was such a feminist book. I can't believe how relevant it is. It's really powerful. I love Louisa May Alcott. Did you know she was like a really big opium friend? My parents wrote a book about her, as they did about Edith Wharton, and Jo is a real hero of mine. But before that, Ryder had some unfinished business. She wants to go to college. She's about to embark on a cross-country trip with her best friend Heather to check out a few possibilities. It's not just education. Ryder probably reads more than most literature professors. It's finally coming to terms with her peers and perhaps learning to live with herself. The thunderstorm has ended. A light drizzle drenches Soho as Ryder hops out of the cab. A doorman pops open a protective umbrella as the diminutive star disappears into her building. Like Meg Wieland, she's a great deal stronger than she looks. And here are 8 of Winona Ryder's performances that stand the test of time. Winona Ryder has always been an electric screen presence. The twice Oscar-nominated actor made her name in the 80s and 90s playing effortlessly cool, supremely stylish outsiders, but she was never one to be pigeonholed. Just look at her subtle, mesmerizing turn as a demure bride-to-be in the age of innocence. Now, more than 2 decades on, she's cooler than ever as the tenacious and resourceful Joe's Byers in Stranger Things, the fourth season of which is due to arrive on Netflix next year. In honor of Ryder's 50th birthday, we look back at her best roles to date. Beetlejuice in 1988. At the age of 16, Ryder burst onto the scene as Lydia Deetz, a god who befriends the ghost Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, who haunt her new home in Tim Burton's deranged romp. To see her swimming in the air to Harry Belafonte's Jump into Line is an utter joy. Heathers in 1988. Few high school comedies are as delicious as Michael Lehmann's satire about Veronica Sawyer, a rebel who is drawn to a new student with deadly consequences. Watch it for the power-shouldered costumes and devastating one-liners. Edward Scissorhands in 1990. With blonde locks, porcelain skin, and a wardrobe of floaty white dresses, the actor is angelic in the part of Kim beside Johnny Depp, titular humanoid in this enchanting fairy tale from Tim Burton. Look out for the goosebump-inducing scene in which she dances in the snow. The Age of Innocence, 1993. Martin Scorsese's swooning Edith Wharton adaptation sees Daniel Day-Lewis play the convicted Newland Archer with Michelle Pfeiffer as the magnetic Countess Ellen Olenska and Ryder as the former fiancée May Wayland, radiant in bonnets and frothy ball gowns. Reality Bites in 1994. Heralded as a cult classic by some of the derided by others, Ben Stiller's ode to 1990s remains an acquired taste, but there is no denying that Ryder is a delight, adorable and impeccably dressed as a videographer who has feelings for her best friend Ethan Hawke. Little Women, 1994. Alongside Kirsten Dunst as Amy, Claire Danes as Beth, Trini Alvarado as Meg, and Christian Bale as Laurie, Ryder was the definitive Jo March of her era in Gillian Armstrong's dreamy take on the beloved Louisa May Alcott novel. It'll make you laugh and cry in equal measure. Black Swan, 2010. Beth, the bleary-eyed, bitter ballerina who is pushed out of the spotlight in favor of Nina, Natalie Portman, becomes more than a tragic symbol in Darren Aronofsky's masterful thriller when embodied by Ryder. Her despair and desperation will break your heart. Stranger Things, 2016 to present. A whole new generation has fallen for the actor since she joined the cast of this nostalgia-laden sci-fi sensation created by the Duffer Brothers. As Joyce Byers, the resilient mother of the fragile Will, Noah Schnapp, she is endlessly compelling. When you meet Winona Ryder, it's how to shake the feeling that she belongs to another era. It's not just that she doesn't appear to have aged a day since the reached icon status in the 1990s with films like Edward Scissorhands and Girl Interrupted. It's also the way she lives her life. She said that she still keeps old cassette tapes of important voicemails and bottled VHS tapes of concerts. It took her an embarrassingly long time to figure out how to take a selfie on her phone. On the topic of the internet, she muses, I do wonder sometimes if part of me didn't want to have kids because it's such a crazy world, you really can't control what they see. Luckily for her, this era, that is the present one, also belongs to another era. Nostalgia is the strongest tide in Hollywood, from sequels and reboots to original films that harken back to a bygone era, and nobody evokes the past quite like Winona Ryder. That makes this the perfect moment for her return to the spotlight. At a time when franchises from Jurassic Park to Star Wars are being resurrected, Ryder starring in a new Netflix thriller series set in the 80s, Stranger Things, that joins a handful of other fictional shows set in recent history throughout this year, including Baz Luhrmann's 70s musical The Get Down and the 80s crime drama Hap and Leonard. While audiences remember some actors based on one or two great films, Ryder had such a long run playing strange, rebellious women in the late 80s and 90s. Beetlejuice, Heathers, and Dracula, among others, that her doe-eyed gaze conjures up a mood more than a memory. Yet movie making has become so stratified that characters like the ones that made her famous are hardly around anymore. These days, it's either a small movie made with no money over the course of 6 years, or the superhero movies Ryder, now 44, says over lemonade at the West Hollywood restaurant on a hot summer day. I can't really envision myself in a cape getting chucked out of a window. Ryder's meteoric rise to A-list status in her teens and 20s and tabloid feud foe shortly thereafter made her a national obsession, but the nearly decade-long hiatus that followed left her tethered to the moment she excited the public eye. America watched her male co-stars like Ethan Hawke, Christian Slater, and Johnny Depp continue to grow up as they became increasingly bankable movie stars, but for the viewers who haven't seen the handful of small roles she's taken over the past few years, Ryder is still frozen in time. That's what makes her so perfect for Stranger Things. Their strengths align with the eerie vibe, think E.T. meets Twin Peaks. She gives an urgent performance that serves as the show's beating heart. I'm sort of old school in my approach to acting. Like, if I have to cry, I have to really cry. I'm allergic to the thing they use to help actors cry. If you literally run out of tears, says Ryder. There are some people who can turn it on and turn it off or use this stuff, but I really have to go there mentally. Usually on a film there's a couple of scenes, but this was my first time doing 8 episodes of something, and let me tell you, crying all day, she poses. Wow. The show has also allowed her to step into a different kind of role. It's easy to think of her as a woman out of time, yet actually Ryder has become a woman who she always wanted to be. I started acting so young, I secretly wanted to be older, she says. I know there's a lot of conversations right now about ageism, and I know a lot of actresses who have a tough time, and I've gotten over those mom parts. But you can make something of it. For me, I'm finally getting to play my own age, and it's liberating. I would not want to go back to playing the ingenue. And now, in a happy relationship with her long-term partner, Scott McKinley Hahn, she crossed over the pair, connecting on so many levels. Winona revealed how she loves that the fashion designer 51, who she's been with since 2011, is not in the acting world, yet they have so much in common. She said it was amazing that he's not into this business. I really did try to keep it quiet. The Golden Globe winner recalled their first meeting and reflected on how he didn't even recognize her despite her global fame. She joked, he thought I was Mila Jovovich. He told me I was great in The Fifth Element, and then laughed. On the pressures of young movie stars to cement their place in Hollywood, Winona said, "This business is brutal. You're working constantly, but if you want to take a break, they tell you, if you slow down, it's going to stop." And then it did slow down. So then you're hearing it's going to be impossible to come back, and then that changes too. You're not even part of the conversation. Like, it was brutal. Winona has starred alongside teen actors Millie Bobby Brown and others in the hit Stranger Things since 2006. On the advice she gives to them, she told the magazine, "I want the kids to understand this does not happen of being on a slow, cold zeitgeisty that people are clamoring for your attention. This is really unusual, and I'm always telling them the work is the reward, because when I was that age, it was so hard to enjoy the fruits of my labor." In overall and in my thoughts, I think Winona Ryder is truly an amazing actress and woman. super talented with so many films behind her belt and skills that she can pass on to the young actors she has worked on Stranger Things. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and share your thoughts. Thank you for watching this, and I hope you have really enjoyed the content today.